Good morning, everybody. Maybe good evening, depending on where you're listening from. My name is Katie Houlihan, and I'm here today to talk about using gamified virtual reality for improving physical and mental health. So first, a little bit about my background. I did my undergraduate degree in applied sport and exercise science, then went on to do my master's in biomedical engineering. Now, within my master's, I focused my dissertation on using gamified virtual reality for chronic pain. So, within this, I created a virtual reality game, a very simple one at that, for inducing moderate exercise that worked out the whole body and used it to look into how it might increase engagement in exercise for 8 participants I used in the end. So it's only a small exploratory study, but it really helped to show the potential that virtual reality has, seeing as at the time it was a very new industry. So I founded Virtually Healthy after I finished my master's degree because I wanted to bring the use of gamified virtual reality into the health and fitness industries. And when I went looking for a job in the industry, I just found it didn't exist at the time. There wasn't anybody that was using virtual reality to help with health and fitness. I think the closest I got was a company using the Xbox Connect, and they were using it in hospitals to get people to engage with exercise and movement. But I think the main thing I wanted to focus on is the VR headsets that actually immerse people in that whole other world. And that immersion really does add to the experience and that distraction factor, I guess, of virtual reality. Now, exercise is used as a treatment and prevention method for a wide range of health conditions. But low adherence is a major problem within the health and fitness industries. It's one of the things that kept coming back up again and again throughout my undergraduate degree. This low adherence, which therefore costs the NHS, I think it's about £1 billion per year, and wider societal costs are up to £7.4 billion, which, when you think about it, is mind blowing. Like how much money this simple problem of exercise is having on society. So the recommendation for exercise is 30 minutes of exercise per day. So 5 days a week, that would be aerobic exercise, and then strengthening exercise is 2 times a week. Now, if you look at the statistics, only 27% of UK citizens and 23% of US citizens meet this recommendation. And if you're looking at adherence rates for exercise programs that are given for managing health conditions, it's very similar numbers. And this is a major problem that needs to be solved. So there's many barriers to exercise that prevents people from engaging. So this is things like a lack of time. So that's one of the barriers that many people give for not being able to engage in exercise. But this lack of time, it's more about the priority of exercise. So when someone gets home from work, they might prioritize making dinner or watching TV. And sitting on the couch and watching TV is a leisure activity, which is just being prioritized over exercise because they see it as more important to relax at the end of the day. A lack of motivation is another one. People don't have that motivation to get up and go and start to do this exercise. Depression and mental health conditions might contribute to not being able to engage in exercise. If you're not mentally healthy, your physical health can suffer because of that. And that's one of the things that we want to focus on in Virtually Healthy is combined approach to physical and mental health, because the two just go hand in hand. Without good physical health, you won't have good mental health. Without good mental health, you won't have good physical health, or generally speaking. So I think mental health is one of those major barriers to exercise, but exercise in itself can help to overcome that barrier. So another barrier to exercise might be self-consciousness about body image. So people might not want to go to the gym or exercise in front of other people in a class because they're self-conscious about how they are looking to other people. They're self-conscious about their body. Pain is another big one. Especially if somebody has a health condition like a chronic pain condition, exercising is really painful. And even for people that don't have a health condition, just going for a run when you haven't done for a year, going for a run can be painful because you're not used to that level of cardio. Your lungs begin to burn, and that's a deterrent and a barrier to people. Some people just don't enjoy exercise. The lack of enjoyment stops them from engaging in it because they're not going to begin to do something that isn't fun or enjoyable. Some people don't have the money to pay for facilities, for exercise equipment, for example. So that cost factor can be a big barrier. And finally, just the lack of access to facilities. So maybe you don't live near a gym, or maybe you don't have a car to be able to get to facilities. So these barriers can prevent people from engaging in exercise, and therefore their health will deteriorate over time. So when I first found virtual reality, I was blown away by how far the technology had come. I'm sure we can all remember the first time trying VR, that you're just amazed by the immersion, and this you're in this whole other world. And I don't think I've seen a single person who isn't amazed in their first time in VR. So I found virtual reality the summer after I just finished my undergraduate degree. My friend had bought a HTC Vive, and I think the first game I tried was Audio Shield. And I came out of that first game just thinking, bingo, there's that tool that can really get people moving without thinking about it being exercise. They can get people up and engaged in physical activity in a fun and meaningful manner. So when I found virtual reality, I started digging into the research into VR. Now, this is 2 years ago, no, 4 years ago now, nearly. And there wasn't a lot of research on virtual reality, and a lot of the research that did talk about virtual reality looked at the Wii and the Xbox Connect. Now, although they are technically virtual reality in a sense, they don't have that depth of immersion that really helps with engagement and distraction. So, research has shown that immersive virtual reality distracts users from mental and physical pain. So, people have had a reduction in pain whilst exercising using virtual reality. People who have had chronic pain conditions have a lower perception of pain both during and after virtual reality sessions. And it's also been shown to help with mental pain, so things like anxiety and depression. And that main theory that VR is distracting users from the perception of pain. So there's the gate theory of attention, that your attentional processes are basically taken up by that immersive world of virtual reality, and it diverts attention away from any pain you might be feeling. There's some research that shows that VR might even change the way that the brain physically registers pain, and sort of taps into that neuroplasticity of the brain, and changes the way that we perceive pain and physically register it. So the research that goes into using virtual reality to distract from pain also stresses the importance of gaming and play elements in VR interventions that are aimed at reducing pain. So within my undergraduate degree, we talked about gamification and how gamification can help to change people's behaviors. So, gamification is basically the use of game like experiences that promote things like flow, mastery, achievement, and intrinsic motivation. It's basically game like experiences that increase engagement in exercise when applied to exercise. Here is an infographic that I created to show how the gamification of exercise can lead to increased participation and therefore better quality of life. So we start out with these motivational affordances, the aspects of gaming that can help to lead to psychological outcomes, and then further behavioral outcomes. So we start off with things like feedback, which gives context to progress and ability. We have points to measure the player's achievements in relation to others. Things like we have badges to visually reward these achievements, and levels to encourage progress to unlock new rewards, scoreboards to create competition between players, goal setting to provide motivation to reach our long-term goals, and challenges to engage players with specific things to complete. So all of these motivational affordances then lead to these psychological outcomes. Things like self-efficacy. Increased self-efficacy is a belief in one's ability to succeed. So you believe that you're going to succeed. Reduced pain, so reduced perception of pain whilst exercising if it's gamified, linking back to what I talked about in the VR research, how the elements of gaming and play are very important when reducing pain. We have this improved attitude towards exercise from all of these, and then these lead to that further behavioral outcome, that overall end goal of increasing participation and leading to a better quality of life. So you can really see how gamification can positively influence people's attitude and behavior towards exercise, and it allows for easy goal setting and progression, which can be really important to somebody with a health condition, whether that's physical or mental, to be able to see that progress that they are making. Now, I started looking into using gamification with virtual reality within my master's degree. So I decided to focus on chronic pain, as that was what most of the research at the time was looking into. I chose fibromyalgia specifically. So fibromyalgia is a chronic condition which causes debilitating pain and muscular stiffness, as well as various other symptoms, including anxiety, depression, and it leads to an average perceived present quality of life score of only 4.8 on a scale of 1 to 10. So there's no clear diagnostic method and no standardized treatment for fibromyalgia. And there's a constant conflict between patients and healthcare professionals due to the limited resources that are available. The most effective treatment involves a combination of psychological interventions, medication, and exercise programs, which is what led me to focus on it in the first place. So there's not actually a lot of psychological support generally provided in a meaningful capacity for fibromyalgia, though, and the medication has many side effects. So that leaves exercise as one of the biggest assets for fibromyalgia. So exercise has been shown to increase pain regulatory functions and decrease pain over time, as well as decrease fatigue, depression, and the pressure applied to tender points before a pain response is triggered in fibromyalgia. But as always, there are low adherence rates to exercise, and especially with fibromyalgia because of the increased pain felt whilst exercising. This leads to poor physical health and overall poor quality of life. And a positive mindset is really crucial for reducing symptoms, staying fit, and having a decent quality of life for somebody with fibromyalgia. On top of the physical aspects of exercise, it's also been shown to decrease depression and anxiety, which are common comorbidities for people with fibromyalgia. Comorbidity is another health condition that comes along with the main health condition. And it's used in the treatment of various other conditions, including for mental health. So exercise is this widely helpful thing that can be really great for a wide range of health conditions, not just fibromyalgia. It can help with the mental health side as well as the physical health side, which is what we're trying to do at Virtually Healthy. So for my master's dissertation, I created a working VR game to induce moderate exercise, which focused on multiple parts of the body. So we wanted full body exercise, so the arms, the core, and the legs. Yeah, I tested this game with 8 able-bodied participants or participants with fibromyalgia, and I determined the effectiveness of the game as a form of motivational exercise to try and increase engagement in exercise. So the VR game was developed with a design focus for people with fibromyalgia. It was built in Unity 3D using Steam VR and using the HTC Vive. The aim was to induce moderate exercise, and the colours and the setting were based on research. So we used a very cold environment, as that's known, to help ease pain, and the colours used were very pain easing colours, with the enemy being coloured red. Red is seen to be this almost the enemy, I guess. People describe their pain as red if they are asked to give it a colour. So 8 participants were recruited, and these were either able-bodied or diagnosed with fibromyalgia. They had to be aged over 18 and were physically fit enough to participate in moderate exercise. They played 2 5-minute games of this game that I created and had a rest in between, which was determined by however long they wanted. And at the end, they completed a Likert scale questionnaire, which was completely anonymous. And this was based off the need satisfaction questionnaire, which was developed for evaluating exercise games, basically. So I'll just show you a little video of the game that they played. So snowmen appear all around the participant through 360 degrees. There's snow piles on the floor by their feet they can pick up snowballs with, and they have to dodge the snowballs thrown by the snowmen and hit them with their snowballs to score points. You can also try and catch the snowballs as well. That's quite difficult. And there we go. So you can see how we tried to instill full body movement. So bending down to pick up the snowballs was working out the legs, and participants were recommended to bend at the knees and keep a straight back. So they're basically squatting to pick up the snowballs. And the dodging out the way works the core, with the upper body being worked out by throwing the snowballs. And it was designed so that people would be encouraged to use both hands to do the throwing, so that there wouldn't be just one dominant side being worked out more than the others. Okay, so that leads us to the results from my master's dissertation. So these are the demographics of the participants. So we had 4 participants that were between the ages of 18 and 24. 2 were between the ages of 25 to 34. 1 participant was between 55 and 65, and then the final participant was in the over 65 category. So we had a very good range of ages that were involved. There were 2 males and 6 females, and 2 of the participants believed themselves to have fibromyalgia. So they hadn't been diagnosed by a doctor, as, like we mentioned earlier, it's difficult to diagnose fibromyalgia. It's often misdiagnosed, so there's some people that may have fibromyalgia that are going to go undiagnosed for a long time. Yeah, only 3 of the participants had used virtual reality before, and only 1 had used the HTC Vive, which was the headset that we were using. Okay, so some of the comments that participants gave was that it's a good way to distract someone whilst getting exercise without thinking about it. We'd like to start with 3-minute games and work time up slowly. So this participant obviously found the 5-minute games to be too exhausting. It was too much to go straight into 5 minutes at a time. Subject 3 thought that maybe wireless goggles would be better. So with the HTC Vive, you've got the wire coming up back, whereas more modern headsets like the Oculus Quest have wireless options, and even the HTC Vive now has a wireless adapter. So hopefully this will become less of a problem over time as wireless headsets become more and more used. So the wire must have been a distraction. So if you're constantly focusing on or worrying about being possibly tripping over the wire, it might distract from the immersion and sort of take away some elements that virtual reality might help to solve. So subject 4 thought it was would be more effective if there were more difficult levels, like the sounds of the snowmen appearing and disappearing, and it helped to be more aware of them. So there was only one difficulty that was used, so it would have been probably more effective to give participants the option to have more difficult or easier options as they vary in their ability to play. Subject 5 said that it was a brilliant idea. Novelty possibly plays a part, but continuing therapy, games and surroundings may need to be changed frequently. The potential for group exercise is even more engaging. Subject 6 said they're surprisingly exhausting, however definitely a good workout and fun whilst being a challenge. It's simple to play, which means appropriate for all. However, if I was an actual gamer, it would probably be too easy. It would be cool to have levels. And final participants said they wouldn't pay for it, but would play it with grandchildren. So some of these elements could be fixed by better game development with more variety, more levels, more options. And overall, it was thought to be a good idea for distracting whilst playing exercising, and participants found it to be fun. So then we get to the Likert scale questions. So all participants found that it was fun to play. All participants found that it was exciting, enjoyable, and entertaining to play. 2 participants thought that it was uncomfortable to play, so that may have had something to do with the wire that was trailing, and that takes away some from the immersion and perhaps even the weight of the headset that was on their head and their face while they're exercising. Would have been probably, in hindsight, better to ask what was uncomfortable, but some of the comments, I guess, gave some insight into that. 2 of the participants found that it was slightly boring to play. I guess it's the same thing you're doing over and over, but the main concept was that it's encouraging and fun, which we found it was fun to play, and in a way boring is an antonym to fun, so that in a way is slightly contradictory for those results. So all participants felt that they were immersed within the game. Yeah, so that immersion leads to that distraction from pain, mental and physical pain, which is what we want to get from the virtual reality environment. Everybody put a lot of effort into playing the game, and everybody was motivated to get a high score. Yeah, there's only one participant that wouldn't play this game again. I think that was mentioned earlier, that they wouldn't play, but they would play with their grandchildren. Only one participant wouldn't spend their free time playing this or similar games. And only one participant wouldn't spend money on this or similar games. This is the one participant, the participant 6, who wasn't really intrigued by playing virtual reality games. Okay. Most participants felt that they had moderately exercised after playing, and if you look at the Borg rating scale from 6 to 20, 12 is the beginning of moderate exercise. So 2 participants were just under this gap, this range for moderate exercise, and the rest of the participants felt they'd exercised either moderately, and one participant felt they'd exercised intensely, at 17 intensity. When asked what's the maximum time that you would spend playing this or similar games in one session, we got answers between 20 and 60 minutes. And when asked how often we play this or similar games, nobody said never. One participant said occasionally. One participant said 2 or 3 times a month. 2 participants said once a week. 1 participant said twice a week. 2 participants said more than twice a week, and 1 participant said every day. So you can see how if somebody isn't exercising but they have a virtual reality headset, they're more likely to get in that exercise through virtual reality if it's more engaging and more fun. Yeah. So you can see this. So difference in frequency of exercising after owning this similar games. Half of the participants stated that their exercise intensity would increase. Now we had one anomaly here, which one participant said that their frequency of exercise would decrease. I think that was due to a misunderstanding of the question. But overall, it was positive results for having an increased frequency of exercising whilst using virtual reality. In conclusion, the game was found to be fun, exciting, enjoyable, and entertaining by all participants. The majority of participants felt as if they had exercised at moderate intensity, but more levels, more difficulty options should be added. There was the one participant in the over 65 range that was uninterested in playing this or similar games again. There is some research out there that supports that over 60s are less interested in virtual reality. However, this may change as the population grows up with the technology and becomes more technologically knowledgeable. We're already seeing in the virtual reality community that there are a lot of older participants and older people that own virtual reality headsets now. So I guess it's just that they're less likely to get into it, but it doesn't mean that they are uninterested, as was originally concluded from this. So overall, this project showed that gamified virtual reality has a lot of potential for increasing motivation to exercise. And of course, this was only the first study. So this is just one of hopefully many to come that just shows that potential and opens up the research field for more research into this. We are currently conducting research into the movements induced by VR games and exploring the psychological and mental health aspects of these games as well. This is all currently self-funded, and we will be seeking investment to continue the development of our programs once we've completed this project. The response that we had from game developers was amazing. We were sent over 40 games to include in our research, and we managed to include 36 of these in our first project. So for this project, we had 20 participants who attended for an hour a week over 18 weeks. So this is originally meant to be 20 weeks, but we had to cut it short due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had included motion capture suit, heart rate monitor, and questionnaire. So participants would come in for their hour session. They'd be weighed and they'd have their resting heart rate taken while sitting down for the first 5 minutes. We'd then put the motion capture suit on them and put them into VR to play a few different games in that session. And at the end, participants all completed a questionnaire about each game they played, and which included things like psychological aspects of the game, perceived exertion, their enjoyment, stress levels, motivation, effort, all of those kind of aspects that we included questions about. So we are partway through our data analysis of that research at the moment, and we're finding some really interesting findings. So in many cases, heart rate is observed to be lower than their original resting heart rate at the beginning of the session whilst they're in VR. So this is usually whilst in a menu or waiting to play the game rather than the increased heart rate due to the exercises induced by the games. two of the participants who had slight limitations to their movements both commented how they felt that they can do things in virtual reality that they can't in real life. So they had greater range of motion in the restricted limbs. We compared perceived exertion to actual heart rate, and it was a statistically significant result that perceived exertion was actually lower than the actual exertion, which really shows that distraction element of virtual reality. And the big one that we're focusing on is adherence to exercise. And throughout these 18 weeks, we had a 90% adherence to our programs, 90% attendance, which in the literature, adherence rates are usually around 45%, with 67% adherence considered to be successful. So this adherence of 90% is an amazing result to have found, and really shows how in VR and gamified VR can really engage people in this exercise. We had a dropout rate of 10%, which is also a great statistic when compared to the other literature for exercise programs. So dropout rates are generally between 25 and 50% in other exercise programs within the literature. So we still have our motion capture analysis to complete, and we are working on the beginnings of our app development, and we've got some exciting roads to go down in the future. So thank you guys for listening to what I've had to say. I'd just like to open it up for any questions, any comments and discussion around what I've talked about today.
So, good morning, Katie.
Hi, morning.
Hi, thank you so much for this really, really great and interesting talk. Amazing results.
Yeah,
First, good morning. Good morning. It's early in the morning in the UK, right? 8:30, something like that. So, thank you very much for joining us on a Saturday morning. So yeah, really great results. So people were exercising more than they thought they were.
Yeah,
and they were doing it longer than usual. Cool.
Exactly.
Were there any other results? Like you talked about people above 60 or like had a bit more issues with VR. Were there any other results that really surprised you that you didn't expect?
From the first one, not so much, I guess, because the uncomfortableness from, I guess, the wire is expected in some ways for people that are new to virtual reality. It does take a little while to kind of get used to, I guess, the virtual environment, and being aware of that wire does become an issue, I guess, for the new players. But yeah, that from that first study, there wasn't anything that really surprised me, I guess. It's more from my current study, what I wasn't expecting to find was that participants' heart rates actually lowered whilst in virtual reality. That was quite I guess it's not a surprise, but I wasn't looking for those results.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of came up, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. And speaking of the cable, I can imagine if you exercise in VR, some people sweat a lot. So
yeah,
how did people like experience that?
So nobody mentioned about that on the first study, really. I guess they were only in there for 10 minutes, so they didn't really have as much time to build up a sweat. But in the second study, it didn't really become much of an issue. So we had these wipeable face masks, and if anyone got their headset steamed up, they'd literally just take it off for a second, wipe it down, and put it back on and go again. And there are ways of dealing with that. So you can get like little neck fans that can stop you sweating, I guess, as much, and cool you down and stop the VR headset from steaming up. And there are ways to sort of deal with the sweat in VR. It's not really. I think I've had mine for my VR headset or my previous one for about 3 years, constantly using it for exercise, and it never became a problem for like it breaking or anything like that. So.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I also have like something that you put on top of in front of your face, which has some air.
Yeah.
that some air gets in. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
A lot still. Cool. And how wide is the adaptation for that? Because like looking at your results, it seems like super promising to use this to get more people to exercise more. How wide is the adaptation? Is it still like only a couple of research projects, or what's the situation there?
It's definitely getting a lot bigger. There's a lot more people looking into it, especially I think for mental health. There's, I think, the first clinical trials into using VR for mental health in the UK that are happening at the moment. And there's a lot of progress, I guess, in the US especially, and a lot of companies that are developing more and more experiences that are aimed more for healthcare, and it's just being adopted by VR users already for being not fitness programs, but like using it for fitness. There's a lot of blog posts about people using it to get fit, get healthy, lose weight, and yeah, there's a lot of promise in the coming years for VR. It's definitely growing, and especially as the Oculus Quest has just been released. That's the wireless headset that it only costs £299, I think.
Yeah,
So I guess if
you
you
mean
were to
the white one, the Oculus
yes,
Quest
yeah,
2.
the
Yeah,
Quest 2, that's the one.
yeah.
And I guess if you like compare that to a year's gym membership, for example, that's cheaper than a year's gym membership. And if
True.
you're thinking about wanting to engage in exercise, someone might pay for a gym membership on New Year's, use it for a month, and then never go again. And they've still wasted all that money on just a
Yes.
month of trying to stay fit and healthy. And it's very easy to drop off after that New Year's resolution kind of wears off, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely my experience.
Yeah.
I exercise more since like with like Beat Saber and other games like that than I ever go to the fitness studio. So that's definitely true.
Exactly. Yeah. Why not just buy a virtual reality headset and you've got that for life, right?
Right? And all the fun games. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what do you think is the biggest barrier to adoption?
I'd say the fact that people haven't tried it is probably one big one. Like if someone hasn't tried virtual reality, it's really hard to explain how it is, I guess. So I guess when I first tried it, I wasn't really expecting anything much. I was expecting maybe a little bit better than the Wii. And then you get in that whole new environment and you can look around, you can move around, and it's really immersive, and you just I don't know, you can't really explain that to someone without them seeing it.
Yeah. So even the people like that are a bit older, that are a bit apprehensive, like once they try it, they really go for it.
Yeah. I just love watching people's first time in virtual reality. It's always just so much amazement from them.
Yes.
It's such a nice thing to see if everyone just like, oh my god, it's actually another world.
I guess that's a big part of your job also with all those studies.
Yeah, definitely is that. That was a good part of it, I guess.
So you founded your company right out of school, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So I went looking for a job in the VR healthcare industry, and there was no one that was doing it. So figured, I guess that's a gap in the market. I'll get in there myself and see what I can do with it.
Amazing, and yeah, and you're located in the UK. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I really like that the snowball game. Is there any reason why you chose that particular scenario, like with the snow and the?
Because of the research into chronic pain, basically, I was trying to base all of my design decisions on the research. And when I look into it, it's like cold environments is sort of pain easing, I guess. So
Yeah.
I went for the snow, the colds, and also like nice cold colors like blues, whites. And then the reason I chose the red scarf was because of research into how users perceive or people with chronic pain conditions perceive their pain, and the color they use for their pain is red. So it's like, okay, well, let's make the enemy have a little bit of red on it, so it's almost like you're fighting your enemy. It's like you're fighting pain.
Oh, amazing! So there was really a lot of thought went into that.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. So talking about hardware a little bit again, like what do you wish, like what new development in hardware would you wish to make this experience even better? Is it haptics or something else maybe?
I guess a headset that's more developed for use in health and fitness. So I guess the Oculus Quest 2 is a lot better now than the first Quest because it's not fabric. So it's easy to wipe down, it's easy to clean it for use within more healthcare settings. You do have, I think, the Pico, which are looking to go down that sort of route and be more healthcare, but they aren't linked to Steam VR. I think they've got their own little platform that you have to develop games for. So it's not quite as accessible for the games that I want to use, I guess, for fitness and rehabilitation and therapy. Whereas I guess people that are developing specific healthcare apps and things would want to just develop for the Pico, I guess, if they're aimed at that. Haptics are a really, really good one that I'd love to see come down in price, I guess, is more of the thing. It's not that they're not there, it's that they're quite expensive and therefore they're not really accessible for people. But I think that'll just come with time, to be honest. So it's a waiting game for that one, I think.
And if you had to choose between like a full body suit and like fingers, what do you think is more important?
For healthcare, definitely fingers, I think. So being able to have that fine motor movement, especially for people like with stroke, being able to rehabilitate like hand movements is quite important. And I think just hand movements open up quite a lot more options, I guess. They're already the hand tracking in the Oculus Quest, I guess, which is getting there slowly. Still a bit of lag last time I tried it, but I think they might have improved that in the Quest 2. Just have to wait and hopefully try that out soon, actually.
So what are you working on? What's the next thing? So you did this project on fibromyalgia. What's the future for you, if you can talk about it?
Yeah. So we're currently analyzing the rest of this data for the final research project that I talked about in the a minute ago, and the idea is to finish the movement analysis and look at the movements that are induced by all these different virtual reality games, and then use that to develop different VR programs. So I want to build up almost like a database, I guess, of the movements that are induced by these games. So we can have a list of, okay, this game activates muscle A, B, and C, and it provides flexion in the elbow and the knee, and be able to have that, I guess, log of movements that people can use, and healthcare professionals and PTs, physiotherapists can use to build their own custom programs for their clients as well. And
awesome.
So at the moment, I think we're just looking for funding to complete our next project whilst I write up the results from this one.
Right. Do you also then do scientific publications?
That's what I'm looking to do. Yeah, for this, I'm looking to write it's about the adherence, about the comparing perceived exertion to actual exertion, and the mental health and physical health benefits. I want to do a big white paper and write that up as a research paper and publish that, so that research is just out there in the community. And
Oh, that's amazing. It's great that you share your results with everybody. So thank you again so much for joining, and thank you for your great talk. And that's the end of our session. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.